make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.
We welcome you into another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. We are at Quaker Steak and Lube on what is an absolutely gorgeous afternoon here in the Valley of Happiness. The Phillies lead the Braves 6-1 as we come on here this afternoon. And I keep looking... I'm forgetting exactly.
The Pirates play at 7.
It's 7.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I keep, for some reason, I've been having trouble finding exactly when the
I don't know what
playoff times are, but
time zone North Korea's in, but that's when the Pirates are playing at 7 North Korean time.
You know, the Phillies with the lead. We're getting to the later innings. I guess David Robertson should be coming in any time now. Is that the What? What happened there?
Good incident, though.
Stuff happens.
That's crazy. And who the hell did I talk to? Oh, Matan. His brother plays for the Phillies and one plays for, I believe, Seattle. One of them. You know who I'm talking about? The guys from the Phillies, Matten. His brother broke his hand hitting a locker. So he's out for the rest of the playoffs. So imagine losing one of your better players to a punched locker. Well, who was the pirate who took out the Gatorade bottle a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Oh, baby. Yeah, there's a combination of that.
Yeah.
Well, that, you know what? That Gatorade had been talking a lot of smack. He deserved it.
No, it had it coming.
Absolutely.
There's no question. It can only take so much from a Gatorade bottle before you have to, or Gatorade container before you have to.
I know. You got
Unleash.
Jeff, it's 3:05 on Tuesday of Michigan Week.
It is Michigan Week. This is a beautiful thing, dear Goon. Is it only Tuesday again?
I know.
Boy, it feels like it ought to be Thursday.
Oh, man.
It's been a long first couple of days of this week. Yeah, and listen, Penn State's what? It's a 7.5 point underdog in Ann Arbor, which, I think, again, is a great spot for James Franklin and this team to be in. And we'll see. I think this game, in my mind, is truly a toss-up. I think it's going to be a play here or a play there. And, who knows how it's going to break out. I have a good feeling going into it, but I've had a lot of good feelings over the years that have been incorrect, and I've had games that I've been very concerned about that turned out just fine. So, but I don't think there's a lot going into this game. I don't think there's a lot separating these teams. I think they both have some question marks. I think they both are better than I was expecting, and I think most were expecting at the start of the season. I think Penn State might be substantially better. I think Michigan may be a little better than what folks were thinking. But I think in both teams' case, I don't think we really know, and I don't think either fan base, if they're being honest, has a great feeling about just overwhelming confidence that yes, we'll go out and beat anybody in the world. I think it's I think we're pretty good, and I think both teams are like that. I mean, but the fan bases I'm talking about. I think it's like I think we're pretty good. I think we could do some really good things. But this game will be important, obviously, for both teams this season. For Penn State and for James Franklin, I think this is a really big game because I think it just presents a tremendous opportunity to get a little bit of the monkey off the back with the Michigan State, Ohio State triumvirate that everybody seems to be focused on and defining success by. But I also think, there's the and this is where I'm going to go with this. So there's the bye week thing, and Franklin's record is not great on coming off of bye weeks. There's the Michigan thing, which isn't really a Michigan thing. It's a Michigan State, Ohio State thing. But whatever, for the purposes of this game this week, it'll be a Michigan thing. And there's the underdog thing. And I think all of those, again, I'm not a big believer in somebody says something during the week and that ticks me off, and then, by God, that's what propels me to victory. But I am a believer in that, there's a little extra juice when you think you have something to prove, right? And I think that's human nature.
Sure.
And I think
proving
James
people
Franklin,
wrong is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think James Franklin hears the talk and he knows the record, and I think he wants to rectify it. I think it's why they handled things a little differently this bye week than they have in the past. And I think this team, again, it's senior leadership that they, I think, have a chip on their shoulder as a program right now. And listen, I think Michigan does too in terms of having a little bit of a chip because, they did not get what they ultimately wanted to get accomplished last year. And I think there are some guys on that team that probably is sitting with them a bit. But for a variety of reasons, I like the spot Penn State is in. I think all of these things do serve as a little extra juice, a little extra motivation in preparation for what is going to be a big game no matter what. I think the fact that it is a noon kickoff and not a night game, and we knew it was going to be, I mean, that's not a surprise, but any team on the road, would you rather play noon or night? I'll take noon, thank you. Right?
Man.
I mean, that's an easy
As a
answer.
player,
Yeah.
home or on the road, you want it over with.
Well, I think especially on the road, though, okay? At home,
no.
can get a little extra. Like the defense, I think, is okay. We're okay with the night game. You get a little extra juice in the atmosphere and a little
from the home crowd. No, I got you on that, but it
just
just sucks waiting around all day. It's
I hear you, but I think I just like going into it. I like a lot of the way things are playing out in terms of I don't know if you want to call them intangibles, whatever. Just the little things that I think would give Penn State just a little extra edge going into the game on Saturday. And listen, I do think, you rightfully, I did not think that Indiana game would be any problem. And listen, it ended up being, a comfortable win, but it was a battle to get to that comfortable win for Michigan. And I also think it was a physical game, right? I mean, I do think, and I guess on one hand, I mean, any college football game, I don't care who you're playing, it's a physical game. It's a physical sport. But I think that, Penn State should be well rested, ready to go, well prepared, all of that. And I going in, I really just like the spot that Penn State is in right now.
I completely agree. And there's a lot of ways James can go about this. He can go, like you said, the underdog route. Like no one's picking us to win type of thing. We're 5-0 too. We're in the top 10. Why are we 7-point underdogs and this and that? Go that route. Go the bye week thing. And then James has changed his ways a little bit. He's changed up how he's done certain things this year, and hopefully the bye week has changed. He has already said he has changed the routine a little bit, and it's still Penn State, Michigan. I mean, it's two blue blood programs going after it. There's nothing more fun in this world than that, and going out to a packed stadium like that out there as a player. You have to. I hope that our players are accepting of like, oh my God, this is going to be so awesome. I don't think there's any fear, and if there's any worry about, because I was trying to tell the guys last night on the Players Show that like they haven't played at Michigan in front of a full crowd, and I said it's not all that. I mean, I do have to tell them that, like it's not. People call it the big house, but what you hear at Michigan versus what you hear at Ohio State or even Iowa or Wisconsin, it's nothing. No comparison. It's an open stadium. I am interested when they put that new press box up within the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So I want to know from the players, is more noise reverberating coming off of the press box? Because that's what we have. We have those overhangs where the noise hits and then bounces right back onto our field. That's why it's so loud in our field. And Ohio State's sort of the same way. Wisconsin's layered up like that too. Interested to see how that plays out on the field at Michigan and stuff like that. But, I mean, as a player, as a competitor, this is why you come here. This is the whole reason you come here. You're not going to play Northwestern. You're not getting jacked up to play Indiana. You're going to at Michigan at noon. The whole country is watching that game. And that does – it's just getting you – I mean, I'm all wired up right now.
Yeah.
End of the show last night, I had to be like sedated. I was all jacked up about my disdain and anger towards Michigan and how much I don't like them. And I hope that our players realize that there's not much love between the two teams.
Well, and here's the thing: when you play at Michigan, you've got to be ready for a 60-minute and 1 second game. Right? Like, you've got to be ready to play the full 60 minutes and an extra second.
Oh, that's
every
good.
Huh?
That's
what?
Good. Well, somebody will cry about it. I did see that they are naming the tunnel after what's his name? The hell's it? Lloyd Carr. Jeez.
Oh yeah.
I had Greg Lloyd in my head. So Lloyd Carr, they're going to name the tunnel after him. NL Carr. It'd be interesting because what was Lloyd Carr's record against Penn State? I mean, he lost early 95 and 96, and then he didn't lose again.
Yeah,
it's pretty unbelievable his record against Penn State.
Yeah.
But they're naming the stadium, naming the tunnel after him. So I was telling these guys last night. I said the problem with Michigan is that you walk out of the tunnel and there's their locker room right there, and they're sitting there yapping at you, and they're supposed to be this classy bunch and this and that. All they do is sit in their locker room and chirp, 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 chirp as you're walking down the tunnel. Then you go onto your sideline, and then you have to move because they have to be able to run across the field to get to their sideline because they're Michigan, and they're so much better and more important than Penn State, and that's how they act. And, yeah, as you can tell, I do not like them.
What?
I do not like them at all. I never have liked them. Actually, one of the kids asked me last night, man, what happened? Did you not get recruited by Michigan? And I was like, no, I got recruited by them. I just didn't like them. I just don't. And I liked them when I was growing up, too. I just joining the Big Ten and how they acted towards us when we were young, where they weren't allowed to say our name. We came into their conference.
Yeah.
Everything you hear me throughout the year, 51 weeks a year, complaining about how Michigan acts and this and that, it's all built up towards this week. And I just cannot stand their arrogance. There's only one more school that's more arrogant, and that's Notre Dame. But Michigan's pretty damn close, man.
Yeah, I can't really argue with you on that.
Let me catch my breath here, Jeff.
Well, but I think, and this is one of those games that I think is good for college football, right? Because there is, and I think Michigan fans would say the same thing about Penn State and Penn State fans. So there's a mutual sports dislike of the two programs. And listen, I will tell you the other thing that I think from a Penn State perspective ought to bother you if you're a Penn State sports fan in general, is I think I'm right about this. Penn State did not win a Big Ten title last season.
Nope.
Right? Michigan.
Yes, they did.
Won 14, if you want to count them. And listen, and Penn State rightfully takes a lot of pride in the fact that it has a broad-based, successful athletic program historically. And you know, in the fall, the fall has traditionally been the strongest of the seasons for Penn State athletics, right? I think the winter may be coming here, but between the two soccer programs, field hockey, and the women's volleyball team, along with football, like historically,
pretty successful
those
programs.
teams, those teams have very good track records, have won national titles, and the whole bit, and. You know, and it's one of the things one of the many things I love about Pat Kraft and having him on board as athletic director now is, I think he genuinely wants and expects Penn State to be competing for conference titles across the board. It's like if we're fielding an athletic team in that sport, we ought to be contending. And I think that's rightfully his attitude, and so. I think there's, these two programs, along with Ohio State, are probably the most broadly based, successful programs in the Big Ten. Nebraska's probably up there when you look at, across the board. I'll have to sit down and think about some other ones that would be in that contention. But I think there's a little extra. There because of the across the spectrum, the rivalry between Penn State and Michigan in the various sports. And
I remember sitting there. Like I always say we've talked about this, but when I talk about like our fans were like, "Oh my God, people were so sweet to us at Auburn," and when we played at Alabama, they were just such nice people. It was so awesome. I wish the rest of the Big Ten was as classy as that. I said, 15 years ago, we all loved Iowa. I was like, they're such nice people, this and that, because we grew up beating West Virginia, Rutgers, Maryland, Syracuse, Pitt, and West Virginia, and those likes of schools. And we had a winning record against all those schools. Of course they couldn't talk crap. So, Michigan, we come into the Big Ten, they don't like us. The fact that we had never played before 1993, and you have two of the richest blue blood programs. The fact that they never played, and they had two strong coaches, and Bo and Joe, the fact that they had never played before was just bizarre to me. And then how 93 ended and how they sort of treated us after the 94, there's that a lot of angst there, built up there. Like, again, like I go back to the 93 game, and that's we lost in that goal line stand type of thing, and that automatically just builds a little bit of anger and hate right there. So, I mean, a lot of it starts right there. But going out there, we went on, what was it? It was 94, yeah. So it's the same scenario. Did you see that tweet that came out last week? It's the exact same date as the Penn State game in 1994. We're coming off of a bye week. Our quarterbacks are both named Collins. No, just kidding. But that was pretty funny. Both Penn State and Michigan's quarterback in 94 were named Collins. But I was telling Buchon, he asked me about the on a TV show last night about how we were feeling about the 94 game and this and that, and I was just like, all the stuff that went into that game and how it ended and all that with the last play of the game. But there's a lot of the little stuff in that game that went on. The holding call that I got, which was complete bull crap. Yeah. The spearing call before halftime to give them a quick 15 to get a cheap field goal. Yeah. To put them on the board, and then how it ended, and then how tired I physically was. I was as tired as I have been in my whole life, Jeffrey. It was the 7th week of the year, so we had 5 games, a bye week, so that was week 7 right there. And we had not played a game past the first series of the third quarter as in our offense. So we were completely exhausted by the end of that game. And I'm talking exhausted, like, wow. I was absolutely dog tired because that was an absolute war. And that's what you're going to get this week. It's a war. You have two big stud programs. I don't see it going out. Like, how the hell is Oklahoma and Texas a rivalry right now with beating 49-0?
Yeah, I mean, but Oklahoma owned them for a number of years there.
They were hanging, they were hanging some big nuggets on them, I guess.
I mean, it wasn't 49-0, but it was, it is amazing what has happened to Oklahoma this year. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know that it's amazing what Texas, because Texas, it's more amazing that they dropped off the way they did, and that they're having to claw back now to being, really relevant again on the college football landscape. But Oklahoma, I mean, man,
4 losses already.
Talk about nothing there that you hang your hat on, right? Like, it's not like you look at it and you say, well, yeah, man,
we got this going for us.
If we just found the right quarterback, or if the defense has played a little bit. I mean, it's across the board right now. They just look like an absolute disaster.
I mean, I was on the outside looking in at that game, so I didn't really realize how many guys left Oklahoma with the head coach, with Lincoln Riley, to go to USC. More specifically, the quarterback, who was out in USC and leading probably for that, maybe second favorite for the Heisman, in my opinion. But Venables goes out there. The cupboard's completely empty. It's ridiculous how empty that. I mean, I cannot believe how fast they fell off the radar.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not supposed to happen. I mean, they finished 5 in the country last year. They were almost in the playoff last year, right? And then to lose 4 of your first 5 or 6 games, my Lord. And you can't blame that on, I mean, coaching and people leaving and all that. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
But I would be mad if I was an Oklahoma fan of that coach taking all those recruits and all the players. But that's the way we got to deal with football. I mean, that's the way sports is going down that road right now. So I have somebody asked me a question today, Jeff, and I wanted to ask you on the air.
Yeah.
Do you see college football going down the CEO, general manager type of world? Because I do. I truly, truly do. I mean, as scary as it sounds, and you don't want to have that happen, but I mean, we're getting closer and closer to it, in my opinion.
Well, and it almost has to be. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, to a large degree, I think it already is.
Yeah, I think that James is probably one of the top CEOs of a program, in my opinion, because he has to oversee everything, and that's the head coach's job.
Yes, and again, when you're talking about big time college football, more than anything else, to me, and I get, they're paid extremely well. I mean, I understand that, but like big time college basketball, there's a lot of pressure there, but you get 1 or 2 guys, and it can be now getting those 1 or 2. I mean, I get it, but you're also managing, 15 kids at the most. Yep. Football, you are dealing with 100 plus on your roster, right? And I think so. You have that. Football to me is as complex of a sport to coach, right? And again, they have more staff than any other team, and all of that. I get it, but
I don't think they have more staff per number.
Well, and we've talked about it before, Goon, though. But it really is the ultimate team sport in that. Again, you could have 10 guys doing everything absolutely right, and if the one guy is off on that play, it can, depending on who. Not always, I mean, but it can be 10 guys doing their job absolutely perfect, and one is and it blows the whole thing up on a given play. And so you have that component, just the game itself. And then, again, now, and you've always had, the recruiting, and then, trying to keep everybody happy, keep everybody in top physical condition, worry about the classroom stuff and what's happening when they're not around the team or the classroom. And now you add the layers to it, right? With the name, image, and likeness stuff, with the transfer portal stuff, and with the ever-changing landscape that is college athletics, and you're trying to navigate all of that. And at a place like Penn State, you're having to keep, and any of the big-time programs, you're having to keep the alumni happy, so you're having to do media and or fan engagements. I mean, that's just part of the job is being out there. You have a social media component, whether you've got to oversee it at the very least. and then, so you have all of that stuff, and then, you still gotta.
You gotta win games.
Sit down and win games
Game
and
plan,
graduate players at a place like Penn State. It's not just win; it's win, and you better be graduating the majority of your players, and your players better be representing the university the way the alumni and the history dictates. Right? You need to have at least the image of clean, squeaky kids that are doing the right thing. And I mean, it is a lot to navigate.
You make some fantastic points there, by the way, because it's like,
and I think
that's why, so many directions.
Well, and I think it's why James Franklin, for as many people will be critical of him,
as ridiculed as he is,
I do think one of the more important elements of James Franklin's tenure here at Penn State is that ability to continue to transition with the coaching staff and, getting the right people in the right spots. And, sometimes that's you get somebody that you think he's gotten a lot of good names, right? And many have worked out. Joe Moorhead, a number of them. And some, it's like for whatever reason, didn't click. And it wasn't necessarily that the coach wasn't all that. It's just it didn't fit here. And I think at the end of the day, I do think if this thing continues to go on the track that it looks like it's going to, and again, we'll find out over the next 3 weeks exactly where this team and program is at. But if it trends, if they are competitive in all 3 games and win 2, right, like that is, in my mind, huge, bordering on monumental success, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you have to give credit to James Franklin, a lot of credit to James Franklin for getting the right people. And the right people, by the way, is players, coaches, and support staff. Getting the right people in the right place at the right time. And this is for all coaches. I mean, this is, Nick Saban is the master at doing this, right? I mean, he's replacing assistant coaches every year, but it all has to meld together into something special for you to have a great season. And I'm going to define great as 10 wins or more. And by my parameters for we can get into the debate of great versus elite, but a great team is winning 10 games or more in a particular season. And again, I think that, James Franklin's role is to make that happen.
You did some points you made. Wow.
But I think when you look at this coaching staff, right, it just feels, and it felt like this in the offseason. We talked about it. I think Manny Diaz was a welcome. It wasn't that I thought there were problems with the defensive coaching, but sometimes you just need some new blood getting in there. And I think Manny Diaz has been a tremendous, I know he's been a tremendous asset to this program and has brought that new energy level. I think, having the offense be able to settle in for a second year was also critical. Even if you had the right OC, if it was another new one, I think it'd be a difficult ask of Sean Clifford in particular and the offense in general. And then, again, you have that mix that we've also talked about with the veteran leadership and then the infusion of new blood and excitement. And it's just, again, it feels like all of that is coming together the way you would hope. Now, we'll see how this all plays out over the next 3 weeks. But going into this stretch, again, I feel as good as I think I could have possibly envisioned before the season began. Because I was not overly confident. I thought they had the possibility of being 5-0 going into this stretch.
Your bullishness cost us last year,
but
Jeffrey.
I certainly thought 3-2 was on the table, and I thought 4-1 was a pretty realistic objective to this point in the season. But these 3 games and this game right now, focused on Michigan Saturday, is a huge one because. From a national perspective, right, this is a chance to get, and I think it's gone up at least in profile, if not in actual competition, these road games. The Purdue game, Purdue may end up, at the end of the season, we may look back and say, listen, Purdue was a bigger win than Auburn. But in profile and at the time, right? Purdue, good win on the road and not insignificant. Auburn, bigger because it's SEC and on the road. And now, an undefeated Michigan team in Ann Arbor is obviously, if they get it, going to be the biggest road win.
Wanted to say that
this season.
Like we said the same exact thing last year. Like, okay, you know what? I did not like the fact that we had to open at Wisconsin last year. The fact that we had to open up at Purdue this year. We had to go to Auburn. But you know what? In the end, it actually plays to our strengths going into Michigan because we have the road games behind us. Now, does this game remind you of any similarity to Iowa of last year or not?
Yeah,
you think
a little bit. But I will say there's a couple of, I think, significant differences from Penn State's perspective. The most obvious is that if and certainly not wishing it, but if Sean Clifford does go down, right, Penn State fans and teammates have a ton of confidence in each of the next two guys up. Like, even if the top two quarterbacks go out, I don't think it's panic time for Penn State, right? Like, you're going to be worried. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and tell you, no sweat, we got this. But it's not like we saw at Iowa last year, where the second half, after what you saw in the second quarter, it's like, is this team going to be able to snap the ball? Like, you feel comfortable with three deep at quarterback.
I feel more comfortable going into this game.
Yeah, the other thing is, the offensive line is, and having a running game, it just opens everything else up. Now, we'll see what happens against Michigan. But to this point in the season, there is a lot of reason to have confidence in that offensive line and running game. To me, that this game is fun and it is big for all of the right reasons. Can this offensive line go up against a defense that I don't think is as good as last year's defense, right? But is a good defense for Michigan. Can this Penn State secondary that has looked all world for most of the season here, we're going to get a pretty good idea of just how good it is over 4 quarters against a Michigan passing attack that has been very opportunistic and also gets set up by a fantastic run game. And that's the other thing. How does the front seven, which has fared very well through the first 5 games, how does it hold up against a stout offensive line and a terrific running back for Michigan? And we're going to, again, find all of this out. And listen, the special teams, which always come into it, for as solid as the punting has been, and more than solid, for as great as the punting has been, and it has been great this season, that's the one difference the other way is going into that Iowa game last year, a lot more confidence in the kicking game than there is this year. That being said, I'm also not in panic mode with that kicking game. I've not been thrilled with what we've seen through the first 5 games, but also truly believe that this team has the capability of doing big things within that kicking game. And we've seen it. I mean, with the personnel they have, we've seen it in clutch situations before. It's just, again, we'll have to see if they get into a clutch situation, how it performs on Saturday.
When do they play this game now?
Well, listen, I do think that the other difference to me from last year going into that Iowa game is not just at quarterback, but especially at quarterback, but across the board, Penn State has a lot more experience on the depth chart going into this game than that group had.
Well, I mean, it starts at quarterback.
Iowa last year. It starts at quarterback, but it certainly doesn't end there.
Our offensive line is better.
Yeah, and you look at the number of tight ends that they're getting a couple of extra guys in on the O line. The D line is back to the rotation.
Oh man, they're playing great.
Comfortable about. And that linebacking core, I think has a chance to. It's getting there, and I think. Abdul has been phenomenal, but I think that as a group, and this Michigan game is interesting to me because I think this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I'm not remembering something correctly here, but Penn State has faced good running teams, and in Auburn, not great, but good running teams, and good to bordering on great passing. That Purdue's pass attack is terrific. This is the first time I think the Penn State's defense is facing a team that is, we think at least going in, really good, both running and passing the ball. And the way I look at it, and I think Penn State will look at it, is it's an opportunity to showcase the different things we can do. And yes, we can shut down. I'm talking from the Penn State perspective. I'm not.
Correct.
I am not saying we. I'm talking as though I was in the Penn State locker room. I just want to clarify before anybody gives me grief. But I think Penn State is going into this game saying, "Listen, we have shown we can shut down a passing attack effectively enough against Purdue. We've shown we can take care of a
running game at Auburn."
But this is an opportunity for Penn State, I think, to mix up what they do. To me, this is a fascinating game on both sides, really, in terms of the coaches and the play calls, right? Can Penn State get the right matchups at the right times defensively? Do they call the blitz at the right time, a run blitz or a pass blitz? And I think both of these teams, right, like to mix it up, both offensively and defensively. So I think both teams are looking to keep the other off balance with both their defensive schemes and their offensive play calling. And I think that's, it's a recipe for the potential for a lot of big plays both ways, both teams' offenses and both teams' defenses. For Penn State, obviously a point of emphasis here for sure, as it always is, but especially these last 2 weeks in practice, is taking care of the football. And that's always a key component, right, in any big game, is that turnover battle. And so to me, this game just has everything. Take your Penn State fandom out of it. If you're just looking for a good game to watch, I think this is a great game to just be able to sit back and watch if you're a college football fan, to just see how this plays out. Which teams' athletes rise to the occasion, which teams' coaching staffs make the adjustments and the right calls at the right times, and can either team jump out early? Can either team get the momentum going early? And if that happens, can the team that is down change that around, or does it snowball?
You know how it works in big games when you're on the road. You got to take those fans out of it. Offensively, you got to go out there. You got to take the ball. You got to get a couple first downs. Obviously, we score would be unbelievable, and then you got to shut them down offensively and you take the crowd right out of it. That's the first thing they have to do. Again, but I'm in one breath I'm saying it's not that loud there, but it still is 107,000 people. So I get it. It's 110,000. It still is somewhat loud, but you go out there. They haven't had a big game yet. I'm convinced of this, is that they have played nobody. All right. I mean, you can sit there and say, Purdue is getting better and Auburn is actually not as bad as, we have some pretty good victories in our back pocket right now.
Yeah.
That Purdue will being a special one, because I think Purdue is a lot better than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah.
And then we go out there, get that opening drive, get a couple first downs, score if possible, this and that, and then shut them down on defense, get their crowd out of the game, put a lot of pressure on them, and make them start making some tough decisions, because make them start doubting themselves that they haven't played a big game yet. And they haven't. So, let that work against them. So, man, can I say there's certain times in my life as an ex-football player that I wish I could go back and play, and this is guaranteed this week every year. I don't think I'm going to sleep Friday night. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm happy the game's at noon. Get it over with. Get out there and play. Oh, man, I love it. I love it. I love it. And, going back, and so I go back to talk about the player show that we had on last night, and I'm telling you, this team is different. It is a whole different team, in my opinion. They're so well led because they're very, like me and Chris say, they're very 2005-ish. They have some great young talent, obviously the running backs and stuff like that, but you have great senior leadership and older leaderships who are running the team, and that only, you get a lot of benefits that come from that. Huge game. We have the running game now. Hopefully, I think you got to make a get that running game going, shut down their running, and then Their defense is not as good as they were last year. And I'm going to get all wound up again like I did last night. I mean, I think the Michigan's overrated.
It is playing itself into being better.
Ours?
Both. I think both these defenses are rounding into form.
Yeah.
I really do. I think Michigan
replaced 2 stud defensive ends.
Yep, and I think that they are figuring some things out. I mean, for as problematic as Indiana was on Saturday. And listen, I don't know how much. I do think the Mike Hart situation played into that for Michigan. I don't know how it can. You don't know, right, as a player. What
you saw the players' reactions on the sidelines.
Yeah.
That was true.
And then you're going out and playing, but you're not you in the back of your mind, you're not knowing if your coach is alive, right? Like, I mean, that is really scary stuff, and that has to play into your mind when you're out there. We talk about the player's ability to laser
did you
focus.
watch the pregame?
I just don't know how that's possible when something like that happens.
So the Michigan running backs were talking about the relationship they have with Mike Hart. This is before he had the seizure on the sidelines. I don't know if you were watching the pregame show or not.
I wasn't.
Okay, but they were talking about, like, Hart was like the stud running back they have. He was talking about how they're the exact same, but he eats a lot better than I do. It was what Mike Hart was saying. But they're very similar players. Mike Hart is the best running back to come out of Michigan ever. He's the leading rusher in the history of Michigan football. He's their running backs coach. And the other thing, he had coached 4 years at Indiana. Yes. So he had people from both teams on worried about him. But the way he went down, but how they reacted to it, but how they had a relationship with him. And I'm telling you, talking to these guys on Monday nights, Jeffrey, these players have a pretty special relationship with their coaches. They really do. And I don't think they've had it in the last few years. I've really noticed there's a difference in these guys and how they're acting. But what they're saying is so much fun. It's so much fun to listen to. And they're playing for each other, this and that, And we were talking, and it's like, well, winning's fun. Winning cures everything, doesn't it? I mean, you can have.
It's amazing how that
It's amazing.
Works.
Win a couple big games, and this will do nothing. But I think we put the pressure on them because they have not had it this year. We're getting into our pregame prognosis over here, Jeff, and it's only on Tuesday. I just look forward to it, man.
Well,
big
things
time.
I'm hoping we see, and there's just little things that I like to see if I can predict or project what's going to happen. One of the things I would absolutely love to see because Michigan, Sean Clifford, like every quarterback out there, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Joe Montana, if you get pressure on Clifford, right, it's a different situation than if he's back there feeling comfortable in the pocket. In Michigan, I said they're figuring things out. I think that defense is feeling good about its ability to get pressure on the quarterback. So there's a couple things, but Penn State's feeling good about that offensive line this year being able to protect Clifford. One of the things that I personally would just love to see, no idea whether we will, and I don't think it's the end of the world if we don't, but I would love to see the 2 freshman running backs both in the game.
Same time.
But and split behind Clifford and a little and play action any time that they're back there. And I think if you do that just a couple of times, just a little misdirection, hand it off a couple of times, but you get both of them back there. If you are Michigan, you have to respect that Penn State running game, at least going in. Maybe they take control of the line right from the get-go, and that changes as the game progresses Saturday. But I don't think so. I think Penn State, again, is going to get its fair share of yardage anyway. But I think if you get both of them back there, and again, you just give that extra pause, and if you can get a little counteraction going and then get Clifford ruling out, I think you make it at least more unlikely that Michigan can get any kind of consistent pressure on you. And, the other thing, if you get both backs back there, you can keep one in for a little extra pass protection, but that's a pretty darn good release valve to have if, you can't find something quickly downfield, right? Like those guys, you give them a little bit of open space, and I think there's a chance that you can open up the playbook even more than what Penn State has in terms of what you can do to.
Do you think they've held back?
Defenses. I don't know that I'd say hold back. I think they're. I think you throw the last game out because the conditions. I mean, I had a couple people text me.
I thought they played vanilla against Northwestern personally, but it could have been the weather. You're right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that had more to do with it. I mean, it was vanilla, but I think it was vanilla because I think the game plan that they had worked on, it may have been relatively vanilla anyway, but what we got was not what that team was wanting to do going into that game if the weather had been decent. But listen, am I expecting more wrinkles? For sure. I mean, you can't coming off of a bye week going into Michigan not show anything new, right? Like that would be insane.
Yep.
So yes, but I think more than holding back, I think it's just that as they continue to develop, and I'll tell you, one of the many things I'm curious to see and excited to watch is does Penn State get Drew Aller in specifically for a series early in that game, regardless of success or lack of thereof for Sean Clifford. And again, I could argue either way. It's at Michigan, not a great spot necessarily with the defense that I think, again, is getting better and better for a freshman. But at the same time, again, if you have a good feel for what's happened in practice the last couple of weeks with Aller, if he's continuing to progress, I think this might be a neat opportunity to get him in there and get him some big-time opportunity.
7-7 games, 7-0, 7-3 game, get him in let him get a series or two. Were you or are you comfortable? I have all these questions for you today, buddy.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with the bye week last week, or would you have rather just continued with momentum and played?
I could argue that having it come between Minnesota and Ohio State would be better.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that this isn't actually the best spot for the bye week for Penn State. Because for that Ohio State game to be as meaningful as you're hoping it's going to be, right, you've got to win these next two games.
Sure.
And I think, the Minnesota game, not taking anything for granted, but at night, that is a tough spot for Minnesota. I am not saying Minnesota can't win it. Obviously, I think they can. But I think this is the game to me that Penn State, and I'm going to put air quotes here because I don't think it's a must win, but of the three, let me put it this way. A close loss to Ohio State, I think, does nothing to tarnish Penn State's reputation in the minds of all but the most avid of Franklin haters.
Correct.
On the Penn State fandom. And, that's going to be there no matter what. But realistically, almost every objective observer has conceded the Big Ten to Ohio State before the season began. And as the season has moved along, that concession has only gotten greater, right? Like, it is very hard to find any objective college football observer who does not believe anybody, who believes anybody other than Ohio State will win the Big Ten Conference this season. So if Penn State, and big if here, but if Penn State wins against Michigan and Minnesota,
correct,
and loses a competitive game to Ohio State and then wins out, I think 99% of the country is going to say that is James Franklin got the absolute most he could have out of that team, and they did better than anybody could have reasonably expected, right? Like 11-1 with a competitive loss to Ohio State is
correct.
Fantastic.
I think you're still in the playoff
through the roof. I think you are very much in the conversation. Depends how a few
Horn
things
made
play
a
out.
great point last night. Kevin Horn.
Yep.
He said 11-1. They go 11-1. They lose one of these next three. Just say the last four or whatever.
Yep.
So you go You go 11-1. You're in the college football playoff. 10-2. You're in the New Year's Six.
I think that's probably true.
9-3. You might still be playing in the Orange Bowl, right? It's already. I mean, he was still sitting there saying a very, very high ranked game if they go 9-3, 10-2, or 11-1.
Yeah, it depends a little bit on how you get to that 9-3 on that last
Correct.
part. I mean, if it's
Purdue, Rutgers, and Minnesota losses.
Yes, I mean if it's a Michigan game like Penn State had in 2016, followed up by a Minnesota game like '99, followed up by an Ohio State game.
I had an argument with somebody the other day.
Yeah.
That they were like, no, we beat Michigan in 2016. I said, no, we got embarrassed we lost by 40.
We didn't just lose. That was
worse.
But
that was my low point.
Well, here's the thing about that, though. I mean, Penn State was playing like a 12th string linebacker.
Didn't they have one of your wrestlers playing linebacker?
It was one of the most absurd. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was like
targeting,
6 or 7 linebackers around. Well, there was injuries. There was a targeting. There were injuries before the game. I mean, it was already depleted.
They started a third team.
And in the first quarter, they lost 2 more. I mean, it was. Yes, I mean it was an awful.
Yeah, but somebody could not believe. I said, no, that was 2016, the year that they ran it and went to the Rose Bowl, and they're like, "You're crazy." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm telling you right now, that was the game that they lost."
No, but so anyways, but truthfully, Penn State, I think if it can be competitive at Michigan and competitive at home against Ohio State and beat Minnesota and win out, again, that's 10-2. And I know that the James Franklin detractors will. Well, there you go, though. You're beating everybody except but those are really good teams, and it would be in Ann Arbor. If Penn State loses those, it's okay, but it was in Ann Arbor, and if it's a touchdown or less, that's, again, far from an embarrassment. And Ohio State, I'm not sure anybody, Georgia, Alabama, everybody else included, is beating Ohio State this year. We'll see. I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. But, boy, it looks like a really, really good football team right now, and an offense that is, up there for consideration with some of the all-time greats.
I am more confident. Excuse me. I was more confident going into that because the similarities to Iowa and Michigan this year. I think the Iowa game was a lot similar to that Auburn game this a couple weeks ago, because we didn't have a bye before the Iowa game. But I felt more comfortable going out to Iowa, and rightfully so, until Clifford got hurt. That was a boat race.
To be, yes.
So, a huge game, a huge team momentum builder. Like, you get through this game, I think that they're going to run the table. I really, really do. This will be obviously the hardest game so far this year because, and then you get to the door and say, well, it's the biggest game because it's the next game, but that's the truth. You get through this game, you get into Minnesota, it is what it is. You go to Ohio State, and all bets are off there if you're 7-0 going in there. So, very, very, very important game this week. And you're right. Whether they keep it close or win, I really have a good feeling about it. I was a little more nervous. I mean, it's still Michigan.
Yeah,
Michigan's tough. I mean, they are tough at home, and yada yada yada. I'm confident in our team, and like I said, the way I talk to these players, I hear and I see different things from these guys this year, and I'm really, really excited about it, as you well know.
Yeah, and listen, I think one of the reasons to be confident from the Penn State perspective is the number of different contributors that the Nittany Lions have received, not just experience, but meaningful and productive experience in. I think one of the harder decisions James Franklin has this week, in all seriousness, is who to keep off of that travel squad, right? Like there are going to be some players who have made some significant plays for Penn State. I mean, it's just there's no way around it that won't be making the trip to Ann Arbor, right? I
don't know what the travel number is. Do you know the number?
Is it
65 when I played.
Yeah, I think it's still 65.
But I've seen them travel. Like when my senior year, I had knee surgery and I missed the game at Purdue, so I couldn't even travel I wasn't dressing because I obviously was in a knee brace from getting scoped, but I wasn't allowed to travel. I mean, even as an injured player, I would count against the number of players on the sideline that are traveling. I don't know if that's different or not, because I do see our guys that don't play or that are hurt, they're actually traveling with the team. So I don't know if they've raised the number of traveling players, but I mean, we're playing more than 65 players a game. I mean, James has definitely said that and done that the first 5 games of the year. I mean, you've figured 3 running backs, probably bringing
70 players for
70
games.
Dressed players.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm okay with that. But make sure they move so Michigan can run off the sidelines there, Bush. Make sure they can run and touch their flags off running through your sideline. Yes.
A couple other things, real quick. Your Phillies, your thoughts on Philadelphia taking care of Cardinals all over the place this past weekend.
Yeah, I'm fantastic with it right now. They're up 7-3 in the bottom of the 6th right now. So I know we're going to get off the air here pretty quick here. I am as anti a Steeler fan as you get. Not an anti-fan. I just, you know what I mean? It is what it is. It's the Philadelphia-Pittsburgh rivalry. It is what it is. Complete bullshit what happened to Kenny Pickett twice this past weekend. And then you change the channel, and then you go see Tom Brady get a roughing. I mean, that Kenny Pickett was almost literally taken out from the season with a massive freaking knee injury. And they call nothing.
And the cynic in me is saying, well, that's the difference between a rookie and a legend, right?
I mean, you're not going to have a legend.
That can't be.
That's dumb.
It is a bad look for the NFL.
Dude.
And listen, it wasn't like one of those things. I mean, you're watching it real time, and you're like, oh, that's and even if I'm a Bills fan, like there are times when the Steelers, I mean, like you see the play, and it's like, oh, there's a flag against us.
Yep.
Whether you argue one way or the other about the way the game has gone, but that's a flag. The fact that the other thing that ticked me off about that particular play, Goon, is okay. So you not only do you not have the flag there, you have the push trying to defend your quarterback, but then the Bills all circle around and push him back. In my mind, that at least has to be offsetting.
Absolutely.
Take the Pickett part out of it. At that point, yes, okay, I got it. You got the Steeler, but they weren't letting him get off the sideline, and he was trying to run away after the initial push.
You're right, he was.
And I think that was and again, I'm watching through Steelers' eyes, but I thought that was extremely
I'm watching it through a player's eyes.
And
you're willing to risk one of your future star players.
Thing, there's at some point we have got to, and I know the plays that you can and can't review. They've got to be able. Somebody has to be able to call it out and say no.
Yeah.
That might have looked like he was, but he swung him down because he was. That's the momentum thing, and he didn't hit any part of Tom Brady's body off of the field. Like that's a good for all of the talk of replay. And again, if we're going to have it and we're going to use it, use it.
Yep.
Don't have a call
that. There you go.
That is horrible. That is a difference maker in that game.
He's all wound up.
Why are you allowing that to stand if the whole goal, and this is, and I realize I've lost the battle and I've waved the white flag, but it's why I don't think replay should be used, period. But if we're going to use it, and the important thing, because that's what I hear from everybody, that, we have to have replay so we get it right. Get it right then.
And then the NFL doubles down.
Right.
And you watch the Raiders and the Chiefs last night at that late hit. I mean, that was the even worse call.
Yeah.
That was a fumble. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then we're to the point now. Okay, so if you look at that, I don't know if you've been watching the news about. So Miami's in some trouble because of the Tua thing. We understand that, right? Because somebody didn't do their job. They didn't do a concussion test.
Yeah.
So then they overdo it this week when Bridgewater gets hurt and say, we saw him wobble. So he is officially out of that game.
Right.
Just because somebody 700 yards away, 4 stories in the air, said they saw him wobble.
Is the thing. Right. And
you're overdoing it.
Yes. And you have to have somebody, right? You have to have somebody who medically on the sideline can say, listen,
He's-
it might have looked like he wobbled, but he just actually twisted his ankle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You have to have somebody that can – these guys – the medical professionals are good enough that they can look in your eye. I mean, I don't know what all is involved, but they can determine pretty quickly. They might not be able to determine the severity, but they know if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. There's no reason to keep the player out. They've got to get that part figured out a little better.
But to put him in concussion protocol, they're just overdoing it. They overcompensated because of what they felt that they screwed up with the Tua thing, and they completely screwed the Tua thing up.
Yeah.
So now they took Bridgewater out of the game, and they just got absolutely trounced.
So can I just weigh in real quickly, too, because there's a lot of, and I get it. When you lose a game like that, the fire comes, yes. I'm not sitting here telling you Mike Tomlin's blameless, but these knuckleheads that are, this is why Mike Tomlin has to go. This franchise is lost. Listen, I thought you could easily see this one coming. We talked about it last week. I was expecting this to be the Bills doing exactly what they did. And by the way, I think Kenny Pickett acquitted himself very well. I think the Steelers need to, and where I will agree that I think Mike Tomlin deserves some criticism, you got to let Kenny Pickett go out and play. They are limiting too much, and you can see it, and I get why. And I don't necessarily have a huge problem with that particular game, handling it the way that they did. But he was clearly handcuffed with what they. I think now coming off of that game, you've seen enough of him that I think you can feel comfortable and confident. And listen, if it ends in disaster, it ends in disaster. It can't be any worse.
Can't be any worse right now.
That was a disaster. But listen, this is the Steelers have been in every game prior to that. Probably should have won the Jets game, and I get you can make the argument that the coaching contributed significantly there. That's fine. What I'm telling you is that this season, and I know Mike Tomlin and fans don't want to hear, this is a rebuilding season for the Steelers. From the time that they signed Mitch Trubisky, I resigned myself to that, and I'm okay with it. It's the first true rebuilding season. They've had seasons that were not as successful as what I or others were hoping for in the Steeler fan base, but this is the first season that I felt going in. It's just definitively if this team made any kind of a run toward the playoffs, I was going to be pleasantly shocked.
You said in the preseason, you said they have a Super Bowl defense, and then that went away when Watt got hurt.
Yes.
So
and now, with his surgery and everything.
Another surgery, by the way.
Yeah. So I think that you need to see what you have with Kenny Pickett.
Are you cool with him, or you want Trubisky?
No, I think you move forward now with Pickett. I think you need to see.
You're in. You tested the water.
What this kid can do, and I think I like what I'm seeing out of him. I think there's poise. I think there's fight. I think he makes the throws. More importantly,
did you hear what Booch said earlier?
No.
Did you tell him that, Chris? What Noble said about Pickett? Who did you tell it to?
Oh yeah, he said that
Noble did the game, and he said he watched the game, he watched the pregame and all that. And he said Pickett has it.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. Having it,
and I think he does, and I think he has the confidence of his team.
I like how he got up.
Huge deal of it. Yeah,
the first time I was like, hey, whatever.
I think it's one of those things. One of the reasons that I think you just ride with him now is you need to see how he progresses, right? Like, because I do think he looks like the right guy to me right now. And by the way, I was very non-committal. I'm very much wait and see, but I've seen enough of him this year that it feels to me like, yep, this is a guy that can be that guy. But the only way you get there now is by going through the trials and tribulations, and there's going to be ups and downs, and it's just the nature of the NFL. You're a first-year starter at quarterback. There's going to be problems, right? There are going to be games where you just got to shake it off. But I think, I think he is the guy. I think you got to let him get those experiences, learn from it, and figure this thing out. and also find out. I mean, maybe by the end of the year, it's apparent that you know what, he isn't it. This is we were wrong.
You'll know,
but I think you've got to find out now, and I think you've seen enough that you ought to feel pretty comfortable and pretty confident that we have the right guy. But you got to let him get the experience now. You got to let him go through and see everything and get that taste and figure it out. And and at some point you've got to address the offensive line. That offensive line is just really bad. And I thought it might be better. I kind of had the same thoughts of Penn State's and the Steelers' offensive line going into the season.
Can't have it all, Ironhead.
The Steelers' offensive line has not given me any reason to believe that it will come together. Penn State's, on the other hand, has been much more impressive than I would have envisioned at the start of the season. Again,
I'll talk to you. We'll talk Sunday about that, maybe.
Yes, indeed.
Which is a very, very big test for our new and improved offensive line, in my opinion.
Yes, and we will talk much more about that big test on Thursday's show. Until then, be good and be safe.
Go Phillies.
Go Bucks.
Talk for 15 more seconds.
Hello.
And the Pirates playoff game.
What my God, the Pirates. They're killing Verlander out there. Oh, that's the Astros.
Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them